In game programming, we often have to work with scenes loaded with different types of content, ranging from art content like rocks and trees to interactable content like characters and items. To understand how we view these things as programmers, let's learn about the concept of objects in programming. Objects, at their core, are simply entities that exist with properties associated with them. To use an example, let's look at this box and list some traits about it. It's painted the color blue. We can say this means it has the material property of blue. It's proportioned in a way that its length, height, and width are all equal. Because this is something we may want to change later, we can say it has a scale property of 1, 1, 1. We can make an assumption that it's a solid object, and therefore does not have any empty space inside of it. Because it could be both, let's say it has a property called isSolid. Another property that the cube has is one we don't typically consider in the real world. It's physical representation, or mesh as we technically refer it to. In this case, it's physically represented as a shape we call a cube, but we could technically give it the physical body of anything we'd like. That was a simple example of an object in programming. Let's break down a different example so we can understand even more types of properties. Let's take an ordinary human for example. He has a physical form represented here as a human male. However, if we wanted to break it down, we could say he has 6 separate physical components. 2 arms, 2 legs, a torso, and a head. He'd most likely have a name. For now, let's just call this guy John. This name is something we could refer to later and use as a unique identifier for this object. Peering past purely aesthetic properties, as a human, he would assume we have the ability to walk. This would typically be actual programmatic functionality we would have to create for this object. Expanding on the capabilities of this object, if we're following the human motif, then he might also have the ability to jump as well, propelling him in certain directions. Observing these 2 examples has given us a ton of information regarding what could be considered an object, but in the end, why does this even matter? Is this Kronza guy just some whack job spouting illiterate nonsense? While I hope that isn't true, there is a reason this stuff is important to know. If you've been in the programming space long enough, you may have stumbled upon the term object-oriented programming. This is the practice of programming using the fundamental principle of objects, which really just means assigning information and properties to entities. As you go about deciding on a programming language to learn and use, many follow this principled approach, including, but not limited to, Python, C#, C++, Java, Visual Basic, Ruby, and many, many more. To wrap up, everything we do in development consists of us creating objects to modify and assign information to. Every piece of scenery has a large list of visual properties associated with them. Each character we add in also has both visual and functional properties associated with them. As developers, we must understand at a fundamental level the building blocks of experiences, and those are objects. That's it. Thank you once again for joining me. If you liked this video or found it useful, please make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you'd like to see more. Most importantly though, leave your thoughts and ideas in the comment section below as I'd love to hear them. See y'all next one.